Welcome to Puro Politics, the political podcast of the San Antonio Express News. My name is Gilbert Garcia, Metro columnist, and I'm joined by
Metro editor Greg Jefferson.
Nancy Pryor-Johnson, associate editorial board editor.
As you all know, on this podcast, generally we focus on local and state issues, but I did want to start by talking about what has clearly been the biggest story in the country over the past week, which was the release of the video of the fatal beating in Memphis of Tyree Nichols, a 29-year-old African-American man who was it was a routine traffic stop and was beaten to death by Memphis police officers on January 7th. Memphis is a city I lived in for nearly 4 years. It's a city I love. My heart goes out to Tyree Nichols' family and the people in Memphis who are hurting right now. And I guess I just wanted the video is shocking, and we've seen some shocking police videos over the years. This one, I think, even stands out compared to some of the others we've seen. Nancy, I guess I wanted to get your thoughts on what your first reaction was when you saw it.
I mean, I put it off. I knew it was coming. I knew it was going to be shared, and I didn't watch it till yesterday. And then I looked them up and watched it and read, the descriptions of it. It was very hard to watch. I mean, I feel like it's our responsibility to watch it. I don't think anybody should say they're not going to watch it because this is America and this is really important to know what's happening out there and to acknowledge it. And for us not to watch it, imagine what his family feels like, right? They had to watch that. And imagine what people, Black men who are out there on the streets who are afraid of police for these very valid reasons. Imagine what they feel, right? Mm-hmm. So we all have a responsibility to watch it. It was disturbing. That is not policing, right? That is like the savage beating by this wolf pack. I don't know. I mean, it was just like something like I've never seen something like that. It just seemed. I was just very taken back by, is this real? Is this really happening? Mm-hmm. Why couldn't they get him under arrest? Why couldn't they handcuff him? And why couldn't they stop beating him? The point where, I just couldn't believe it. I had to stop it several times. The point where they're holding him up to beat him. Yeah. Like, why? Right?
Yeah. When you think about the mission of a police officer, which is to protect the public, to maintain public safety, there was none of that involved here. This was someone who was really no threat to the public. Something that should have been handled in a much more low key way, if at all. And he's there on the street. He's saying, "I'm on the ground," and they're yelling at him. They're kicking him. They're beating him. He's yelling for his mom. It's a horrible moment. And I was really struck by how at the end of it, as he's laying there on the street and he's basically dying in front of him, and they're all just kind of talking about it, with this in this very sort of casual way. They're kind of joking about things. They're I think one of them saying, "Oh, he's high," which I have no idea if that's the case or not. But they're just. There was very little in this that I saw of where there was consideration of the fact this was a human being. As they're handling the case and as they're like standing around talking while he's dying, I just never really got the feeling that this was a human being, and that they were cognizant of that. And I wanted to mention, a couple of years ago there was that in Congress we had a bill introduced, which was the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and it passed the House, and it got blocked in the Senate. And I think that there is room for bipartisan debate on. I don't think there should be any doubt that we need to look closely at policing in this country. We need to look at how police policies. We need to look at training practices, people who are making it through academies, and whether some of those individuals should be on police forces. There are a lot of things we need to look at. And if there are some disagreements about some of the details in that bill, I think that the two parties should be able to hash things out and try to come to some kind of compromise that can address the problems that we continually see with policing in this country. It's a very hard job. We all know that. But there's just no room in this country to have for people to be conducting themselves in this way. I mean,
and think about it in this way: what happened before body cameras? I mean,
it's a great point.
Right. We've seen some horrific acts carried out by police on camera.
Yeah, not too worried about the fact that they're going to.
Yeah, and they weren't even worried about it.
Right? Yeah, they weren't. Yeah. So what happened before? And how have body cams, has it
That's a
benefited us as a set? Probably, but it's impossible. What they will do on camera, knowing. Not even that. Forget. Just set aside the morality of it, of beating the man, setting him up to beat him again. They knew they were doing this on camera. It's stunning to me. Just horrific.
San Antonio Police Chief William McManus called the beating of Tyree Nichols incomprehensible. I think we're going to probably hear this incident talked about as if the charter amendment dealing with policing actually gets on the ballot, which I think it's likely to get on the ballot. So I think that's going to be something that we're going to be talking about. And we should be talking about policing. We should have a really open discussion about policing in this country. Shifting to local issues, Anna Sandoval, we've talked about her District 7 councilwoman. We talked about her decision to resign, and that her term ended, or her tenure ended at the end of last week. And City Council has decided, and this is because of the fact that we've got a city election happening at the same time, and that seat is going to be open. They decided to basically wait a month to fill the city council position. They're going to be deciding, they're going to have a 2-day process. March 1st, they're going to have candidates come in, candidates for the appointment come in and talk to the council, and they're going to whittle it down to finalists. And then on March 2nd, they will pick someone. If that person doesn't get as many as 8 votes, it would be another 10 days before they actually start to serve. I think whoever gets it will probably get those 8 votes. But this is kind of a long period. And Greg, you've covered city council a lot over the years. What do you make of this?
This is a new one on me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
me too.
Yeah. No, 1 month without a council representative. Sounds like a long time to me. So I assume that Sandoval's staff is kind of effectively the council representative.
Right.
There's no center to that office. So Andrew Solano, who's our chief of staff, he's kind of the de facto council member right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it's, and I don't know, we don't have a good answer about why council has decided to delay this. You would think that this is something, having a council member, even an interim appointee, would be a matter of urgency, and it's not. And I think it goes back to, concern about, we've got candidate filing. It opened about nearly 2 weeks ago. That somebody will be appointed and they will, get the interim appointment and then wind up running for the seat. So they're waiting, by appointing an interim on May 2nd or March 2nd, you're past candidate filing. So anyway, for a fact if the person you're appointing is not running.
Sure.
It's kind of paranoid though. We have the example of Ivy Taylor.
I was thinking of that.
Yeah, exactly. And it always kind of goes back to Ivy Taylor. She was, she was the interim mayor. She said she would not seek the office.
And then, kind of got the appointment, at least partly on the basis of the fact she said she wasn't going to run the following year.
And then bam, she's running. This is, I guess, if that's your template, it's like, okay, this makes sense. But this is to say we don't trust anybody who, we don't trust the applicants. If they tell us, if candidates or if applicants are telling us they're not going to run, that's not their plan. We're not going to really buy it. So
there is one though, right? There's one that's already said he wants to.
Rossiter.
Rossiter.
Yeah.
And because he says there's no accountability if it's a lame duck person in that seat. But can't they just tell him don't do it?
Well, I mean, they could just say,
or not choose
that's fine, but we're going to choose somebody else.
Yes. Right, we're not going to choose
and plus, I mean, this is, his lame duck argument. I mean, I don't know that much is going to get done in the next, heading into an election, things tend to calm down at city council. I don't know that they're going to be, I don't think it's going to have that much of an effect to have somebody in the interim position who's not going to run for the office.
Yeah, but to put things in perspective, I mean, when Phil Cortez had like a military service that forced him to leave the council for a couple of months, they filled that seat. Recently, Clayton Perry had to take a sabbatical to deal with his issues. I think to get some treatment because of chemical dependency. That's apparently that was the case. They filled that seat.
2 weeks, right? Wasn't it about 2 weeks?
It was very fast. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it was like, I know the car crash was November 6th, and then his absence began mid-November, and then Mike Gallagher was December 1st.
Yeah, December 1st.
So that's about 2 weeks. So they're more than doubling it for this.
So they've really never liked to leave any kind of Chris Medina, I think, also had to leave. It was similar to the Phil Cortez situation, and they filled that one. And so they don't like to leave these things vacant. Anna Sandoval, it was pretty clear if you look at what she said. She said, I would have liked to have had this filled quicker, but I didn't have a say in that. So the thing there are a couple of things that are curious to me about this. One is the idea that they didn't want the election filing period to overlap much with the application process. Well, even with that in mind, the way they set this up is the application process begins on February 13th. Election filing doesn't end until February 17th. So basically, you got that work week from that Monday through Friday when people can do both.
Right.
Even with the Ivy Taylor example, I think it's hard to imagine somebody saying, I'm not going to run, and then double crossing them like a week later they file.
Yeah. I mean, at least Ivy Taylor gave it. It was a matter of months.
Yeah.
It's not like 6 days.
I'm not denying that there are some brazen people out there, but I just think that would be, I would almost tip my hat to somebody who said, I'm not running. And then a week later, change my mind. Circumstances have forced me to change my mind. The voters.
There's been a groundswell. I have no choice.
It's the voters.
Right.
I'm being inundated.
So I think this would be the time frame would make this a little hard to imagine. But even if we go with that, on February 17th, election filing will end. At the end of that day, they'll know who's running in the election. They could have started the process of talking to applicants as early as Monday, February 20th, have a special council meeting on 20th, pick that person on the 21st. That's like a week and a half earlier. You could have had a council member for at least that week and a half. So, I mean, that's bare minimum. They could have done that. I think they should have just gone ahead as early as possible. I think you should be doing it right now. And again, I'm not saying that it's the end of the world for people who live in District 7. She had a very competent staff, and they're gonna be able to handle things. But I think if you look at the way the council has emphasized the need to have somebody representing whatever district has a vacancy, I think this is just something they've never done before.
It's weird, and it comes down to Mayor Nirenberg, and there's something going on that we don't know about. There's got to be some explanation about why council has decided to leave the seat open for a month. And we don't know what that is. And it definitely didn't come out, in the meeting last week where this procedure was established.
I like the fact that they wanted it to give this appointment to somebody who's not going to run in May. I agree with that, but I still think this could have been handled better.
I mean, I do wonder Rosie Castro. This is like she's probably the most prominent person we know who will seek the interim appointment. I mean, does this have something to do with her? Like, is this?
That's who Anna. I mean, that's who she endorsed.
Right,
I mean, that's who she supports.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And that's kind of an unusual step for a council member to throw her weight behind. A particular.
Do you think there might be something that we don't know about?
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm just putting it out there, but I do not. I'm not.
Giving me something to think about. Yeah, that's good. Another thing that happened last week on City Council was the vote to use the power of eminent domain on Moses Rose's Hideout, which is a downtown San Antonio bar. And there have been ongoing, I don't think he would describe them as negotiations, but there's been some talk between the General Land Office and the owner of the bar, Vince Cantu, over buying the property so this can be converted into an Alamo visitor center and museum. And my understanding is that the highest offer has been $3.5 million. He wants something in the neighborhood of $7 or $8 million, maybe more than that. City Council last week approved by a 9-2 vote, invoking the power of eminent domains, basically take over that property. The only 2 votes against it were Terry Castillo and Jalen McHugh Rodriguez. This seems like a big step, and the council was pretty united on this one. Given, I mean, I think the sense that I have just from like people I hear from in the community, people were pretty unhappy about this, and it was interesting to me that you got 9 votes to go forward with it. What do you think, Rick?
Yeah, I mean, this is a property rights kind of state.
Sure.
So it seems like this is a really serious step to take. I mean, so it kind of engendered the kind of reaction you saw at council last week. I mean, it depends on how you feel about the redevelopment of Alamo Plaza and the land office's plans, the Alamo Trust plans to remake the whole Alamo experience. If you believe that the Alamo Museum is worthwhile, it was clear that he wasn't going anywhere. Mr. Cantu, owner of the bar, and you're right. Like there haven't been ongoing negotiations. I think during the council meeting last week, Mayor Nierenberg said, "Yeah, we've been." I don't quite remember how he put it, but kind of implying that they'd had kind of talks for 6 years. I think what happened was they would make an offer, and Cantu would say that's way too low. That's not really that's not really a negotiation. Yeah. I mean, I think at one point he was saying, $17 million would be a fair
17.
price. And that's the thing is like and you kind of know where he's coming from, right? Because he's looking at this as, the future earning potential. That's not how you sell a business.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like he wants to take care of himself, his future.
This is like his one big shot, really.
Right, yeah, it's his one big shot. I mean, sales, property sales like that just don't work that way. But now, it is funny. So the city council approved entering the process of eminent domain. They're going to negotiate with him first. But the question is, how serious? How real is a negotiation when you have the threat of condemnation?
How long was it? Was there some? I'm not sure if there was any decision.
I don't recall if there was. We're going to give this X number of months. But I mean, the reality is, Cantu will probably be a little more serious about actual bargaining and the state. Because if he doesn't, then it'll just go through the eminent domain process, and he'll wind up getting market value. And there's not. Once you go through condemnation, the state's really constrained in what it can offer for a property. It's got to fall within the appraised value, and you can't say in that process you can't say, hey. Sorry, I know this is you were thinking about this in terms of your future, but this is
So this is major leverage for the state now.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah, I think the last offer that they made was $3.5 million, which is way off than the $17 million, way lower. But I don't see them offering any more than the 3.5. And actually at this point, I think it's generous. If they were to offer the 3.5, I think he'd be lucky.
Yeah. And you're talking about tax dollars, right now. So, there are no gifts. There are no Easter eggs involved in this. It's, he's not going to get anywhere close to what he'd hoped. I never really believed the 17 million. It didn't seem serious to me, but maybe it was, but if so, he's going to be really disappointed.
Yeah.
Like, really disappointed.
Yeah. And as you said, I think this state, it's probably true in many other states too, but there's definitely, I think the people are very sympathetic to his situation. I think people hate the idea of property owners having something like this done to him. So it's gonna be interesting how it plays out. Yeah. I want to wrap up by talking about two bills that have no chance of passing, because that's what I do.
That's what these two lawmakers do.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Nothing better to do.
Put it on
if
them.
we didn't have that, then how fun would the governing process be? So anyway, we had last Monday, I believe, U.S. Senator Ted Cruz did what he does every 2 years at the beginning of a new Congress, which is he files a bill calling for a constitutional amendment to impose term limits on Congress. And it's always interesting to me how the bill is always the same. And as I mentioned in a column the other day, the first one in 2017 was carried in the House by a Congressman named Ron DeSantis, who we've been hearing about a little bit lately. But it's always the same. The terms are maximum of 2 terms for U.S. senators, 12 years, maximum of 3 terms for members of the House. So House members get 6 years. Senators like Ted Cruz get 12. 2. Interesting. But so it's always the same, and it never goes anywhere. Right. But what's different this year is that 2 days after he filed the bill, State Senator Roland Gutierrez, a San Antonio Democrat, filed his own bill basically saying, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a great idea. And I'm filing a bill in the state legislature calling on U.S. senators to be term limited after 2 terms. He also sent a letter to Ted Cruz in which he said, I read with great interest the filing of your bill, which proposes a constitutional amendment to the U.S. Constitution. And he said, your leadership on this issue has inspired me to file SB 96 in the Texas legislature. I think the sarcasm was it was off the charts on that one. Yeah. And he goes into the issue of whether it's constitutional to have for a state to pass a law which would govern the election of federal election officials or office holders. One of the things that people have thought in looking at this is that Roland Gutierrez has in mind possibly term limiting Ted Cruz himself by challenging him next year. I talked to him about that. He's said, which you would expect him to say, that concentrating on the legislature this year, I don't have, and he represents Uvalde, and he's dealing with he filed legislation dealing with gun reform and trying to get compensation for the people of Uvalde. So there's that issue, but there's the other issue, which is that Ted Cruz's bill, if it became a constitutional amendment, would not apply to wouldn't apply to anybody who's been serving up to that point. If you've already served 2 terms, it would take effect from that point on, and you'd be limited to say 2 terms in the U.S. Senate from that point on. Ted Cruz is coming up to the end of his 2nd term next year. Why doesn't he do as Beto O'Rourke did? Beto O'Rourke was a Democrat who believed, we think of this as a Republican issue generally, but Beto O'Rourke was a Democrat who believed in term limits. He got into the U.S. House, said, I'm not going to serve more than 4 terms. After 3 terms, he term limited himself out, and he ran for the U.S. Senate. Why doesn't Ted Cruz just like term limit himself out? I think that's really what Roland Gutierrez is trying to kind of poke at him about.
Yeah, this may sound crazy. I think he likes power. And
my favorite,
I know this is nuts, right? And he's a master of demagoguery. And these are actually these actually go together. It's a way of talking about the cleaning, draining the swamp. I mean, look, Ted Cruz, when he's serving his 19th 6-year term as U.S. Senator, is going to be introducing the same bill and wanting to drain the swamp. I mean, does anybody take this seriously? No.
My favorite part of that letter from Roland was, let's set the example here in Texas. 12 years from one sender is enough.
Yes.
I mean, it's funny, but I think term limits are something that I support them. I think term limits would get some new blood in there and some new, these giving into special interests and all of this. I mean, I think it would help a lot. And you get younger people in there. I think across the board, it would just help.
I always thought, and Roland Gutierrez said that he always thought the same thing. We have term limits. They're the voters. Voters can vote people out, but we know what the reality is like. And there has been more turnover in Congress, particularly in the U.S. House. I think in recent years, going back to the Tea Party wave election and everything. So it used to be that just if you got elected to the House, unless you were in a swing district, you're going to be there forever. But nonetheless, I mean, we have people who have serving 40 plus years. We have people, I really don't want to be ageist about this, but I don't think anybody, we should have somebody who's just got elected at the age of 89 after serving 40 plus years in the U.S. Senate, which is happening.
Think of what term limits would have meant in the 40s and 50s in terms of civil rights legislation. So you had, it's a great point. You had Southern Democrats who both senators and congressmen. I mean, I don't think there were any congresswomen at the time.
Probably not.
Anyway, definitely not.
Yeah, they were elected and they returned over and over again. They built up power. They had, really substantial chairmanships in the Senate and House. A lot of them bottled up civil rights legislation and really slowed that push, by a decade.
Yeah.
I mean, and if that hadn't been in place, if there had been term limits, then again, it's, who knows? But
it would have
happened a little faster. Yeah.
Yeah. And if I had my way, which I don't, I would probably lean towards something like maybe 18 years in the Senate, 3 terms, 18 years in the House, 9 terms. That way you would be able to build up some institutional knowledge, have some experience, but it wouldn't get into these ridiculous situations where people get elected, and serve in the Senate for 40 plus years. So again, that's probably not going anywhere anytime soon, but I would watch any public comments that Roland Gutierrez makes about Ted Cruz going in the coming months. I would watch those with interest because something could be brewing. I don't know that, but something could be brewing there, and I think it could be interesting to watch. On that note, we will wrap things up. Hope everyone's doing well, and we'll be back with you next week. We'll have a special guest who remain a secret right now, but we will have someone next week, and we'll be back with you next week. Take care.